And
Assalamu
we are
alaikum.
live.
Yeah.
Walaikum salam. Let me put a message in the WhatsApp news group to let the general population know that we are live.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hear last week's games were fire, man. It really got interesting with both series. Could be nice to recap that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to dive into that, Mubin.
I'm looking forward to diving out of it.
I hear there was a lot of diving, Bucks. So what were you doing, man?
So,
Swimming pool was open season or what?
buddy, you know what I do? It's the sliding season. It's always sliding. Unintentional sliding, but sliding.
Assalamu alaikum, Rizi.
Salam, All Star driving. These
We'll
guys must
just
be happy.
so I'm not your normal host. They had to really dig deep into the bottom of the barrel to find someone to host the show. But as the old saying goes, the show must go on. We'll wait for a few more individuals to show up, and then we'll get the festivities started.
Jeez, man. Did you guys see
Uh,
that Haya game? Oh man, I know Riz. I know. All I heard was mullets everywhere.
See it. I was in it.
You definitely saw it,
I saw it, heard it, lived it,
felt
felt
it.
it. But it's good. It's good. It's good to see the guys out, and like it's kind of one of those things that's expected when you play Haya, right? It's you don't just come with the team. You come with with the team inside of the rink. It also comes with the team outside of the rink too. So good to see those guys out, and I'm sure they'll have a blast. Confirming that they made it to the next round. So
No Riz.
Yes, Riz, we will talk about the Haya versus the San game, as well as the Subber versus Eclas game.
Do I have to
All
relive that?
all right, for today's agenda, we will talk about the Eclas versus Subber game, the Isan versus Haya game. We'll do a brief recap of the Subber and Isan season, and we'll look forward to the two semifinal matchups and kind of see what the finals has in store for us. Want to introduce our panelists? We have Habibi, as usual. We have
Assalamu
Maju, as usual, and we have a returning legend, Omar Baksh.
The grizzled
Um,
veteran.
definitely grizzled.
if
The
if he's a veteran, then what am I?
A senior citizen.
You're the commish.
all right, gentlemen, should we proceed?
Let's do
Ready
it.
when you are. Yeah.
All right, let's do it. So the first game of the night was Eclas versus Subber, game one. Score for game one is my apologies, that's game two. Score for game one was 5-2.
There, now you know.
Um, Bakshi, since you played in this game, you want to kind of recap what Subber's mindset going into game one was and how the game ended out?
So basically, we were actually pretty short benched. That doesn't change the outcome of it, but we had a lot of our key guys missing in that first game. Well, in both games, but we were lucky enough to get a couple of guys who were questionable due to personal reasons and or injuries. We were lucky to get them to come in for the second game, but unfortunately they weren't able to make the first one. So I think really we're just trying to make sure that we played as defensive as possible and really just try to limit Eclas's chances. And obviously with those extremely skilled guys on their team, that was going to be very hard. And it proved to be pretty difficult. I mean, it goes without saying is the skill is immense on that team, and as well as the speed, and they had a full bench. So, I mean, I think minus one person, but they brought everyone to play, and it showed. I mean, they were a well-oiled machine in that first game, and we were trying to survive. I will say, that we did a pretty good job to contain them in the first half. I believe it was 1-0 up until that first half, and I mean we were proud of ourselves that we kept it that tight. And honestly, just a couple of mistakes, guys getting tired, and just overall skill eventually taking over. that first game eventually ended as it probably would with the people we were missing and how they were playing. So, I mean, kudos to them, and kudos to our guys who showed up in the first game and tried to keep us in it. Um, it definitely got us warmed up and and soared up for the second one.
So before we move on to the second game, Habibi, do you want to add anything for the first game?
Well,
Or
I
do you
mean,
want to take it up a level and just talk about the importance of winning that first game?
well, the importance of winning that first game is right. It's important to win that first game because it gives you leverage on that second game. But I think when playoff hockey is playoff hockey, you play the best in both games, no matter what the outcome is. But I do agree with Bakshi. I think they played very well in the first game, and I think I don't remember if it was the first game or the second game, but I think they had the lead.
Second game. That's where it changed up a bit.
Yeah, it changed up a little bit. So, to your point, Mobeen, like, the fact that they lost the first game, you really saw them, coming back in the second game because if memory serves me correctly, they were actually leading, and I think it was kind of a nail biter actually in the second game because
Don't
you
take
guys
all my points away.
no, but well, I mean that's just I'm just going back to Mobeen's point, and like in terms of like taking up a notch in terms of like the importance of playoff hockey in the first game and the second game. So
The
I
game
mean,
two was the most
without
exciting
taking
game.
up too much points, Bakshi, you're right. The second game, I think you guys knew with your backs against the wall, you kind of stepped up a little bit.
And I think that also like to his point, as much as the first game is important, if you have your legs or if you want to carry anything for later, it's the second game where you can take it up a notch and then you can force overtime, and that really can, I mean, that's where adrenaline and everything can picks up, and the team that wants to win wins.
Yeah, and that's essentially what kind of happened, right? So I'm sure both teams wanted it. I mean, I'm sure both locker rooms had their pregame khutbahs, if you might add, in terms of like pumping the teams up. But it's important for both teams. Both teams are fighting for the same thing, and it really boils down to what team wanted it more. And I guess the outcome is the outcome. And not to say that Suburb didn't want it more. I'm sure they did, but you kind of saw that in the second game, Butch, in terms of like
So
Mobeen,
kind of
officially moving
elevated
on
the
to
game
the
a little.
second game, where the score for the second game was a clean sweep for a class. They won 4-2. As Habibi did and Bucks alluded to, Suburb was up in the first game, second game. My apologies, and they were actually taking a lead into the second half. I was wondering, Bakshi, where did things go wrong in the second game, and where did things go wrong in the second game, and overall in the series, what would you wish could have happened better?
so I'm rather than talk about the negative for a second, I want to talk about the positives because, I will say this, that the team stepped up huge in the second game. Farouk came in because you can see he was the second star. He came in, made a huge impact, was on the floor practically the whole time. He came in and made an immediate impact. Moth came in with an injury and still showed up for the second game and made immediate impact. So just having those two guys come in for the second game changed the entire identity of how our team played, because those are two very important guys. And I can't stress it. We're a completely different team with those two guys on there than we were in the first one, and we were taking it to them. I mean, I'm going to give Ecos a lot of credit. They were pushing us the whole way. There was no stopping them in regards to their offensive power, their passing, their puck control. It was it was it was clinical. Like they were, and then obviously like Aldo John's first game back with them, he stepped in, played great. Wasn't it wasn't a rough kind of go with them. They were playing smooth, but I mean we were up 2-1 for I would say three-quarters of the game, and they were sweating. I'm going to say this. I heard a lot of those guys after the match. A lot of the guys there, they were really, 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 really like they were on their toes. They were worried that we were going to take off that game and then force OT and then anything goes. So I think Rizwan Kalair, when he hit that tying goal that made it 2-2, you could see it's like he scored the game winner and like it was like a game winning goal. The way he reacted, it was amazing. and it was very bad for me sitting on the bench to see that, but to see his face and how relieved they were was was really letting you know how they felt, and we actually applied the pressure pretty well in that second game. But again, you have Hamdani, you have Batar, you have Wadi, you have Rizwan Khaler, you have everyone. Those guys just they are so smart out there. The hockey IQ is beyond out the charts. They can beat any team out there. It just comes down to who wants it more. And I'll let you guys take over, but pretty much like it was a tough
Well,
game.
before I let you off
I'll
the
give it
hook,
up to our guys. I'll give it up to
before
our
I
guys.
before I let you off the hook, we have to talk about your sliding penalty on Chohan. For the viewers who weren't there, can you describe the play and describe the outcome?
It was a loose ball. We both were going towards it. I slid in my usual sliding fashion towards it, but I wasn't sliding towards him. And we were both kind of colliding like this. And I slid first. He tried to jump over me. My shoulders. I mean, he clipped me, and then he flipped back. And yeah, it was a penalty. It was unfortunate, but I just wanted to make sure he was okay because obviously it's all in brotherhood, and there's no intent or malice intent there. I'm
No,
literally
we
just
all know the real Bakshi. You won't hurt anyone. It was innocent play. All
yeah.
right.
So, anyways, like it was. Forget about that play, but realistically, shout out to Glass and shout out to their entire team. They all showed up to play, and they're going to be a tough go for anyone. It doesn't matter if you're blue or white or whatever team. Like they're as good as anyone out there in that top 5, top 6 guys. They will be tough for anyone. So, good luck to whoever's facing them.
Maju, I promise to get you in the podcast, but I just want to hear from the individuals who actually were at the rink and played. So, Habibi, that's your cue to talk about your series. I know you're facing off someone who's very familiar, family to you. So, go ahead and just recap this
Yeah.
series for us, please.
Well,
Game
speaking
one in
about that,
particular.
well, game one, it's a good segue because speaking about that certain individual, he was not actually present for the first game. He was just kind of flew in from vacation. But that, in terms of like the whole team, they were actually missing guys during the first game. But in terms of the outcome, I think the outcome for the first game really is a true picture of what essentially happened. They were both two evenly matched teams. It was an evenly matched game. The score does reflect that. But you know, they were missing their two guys. Two main guys actually. Um, but the first game really was a good game to play, and it was really evenly matched. I don't think that there was any disparity between the two games, but we were also short bench too. We had a lot of guys that were missing, and that was not only the first game but also the second game as well. So not much to say about the first game. I think that the score was pretty much reflective of the outcome. It was an evenly matched game, hence the outcome of the score. Second game was a little bit different. I think because they had those two extra guys, and it was one of those comments that was actually floating in our own group chat, is that we were literally one man short of actually winning that game. We truly felt that we should have won that game. The second game, um, we didn't have a couple of key players. The first game nor the second game, they had two key players that returned to the second game, and I think it was reflective. Not to say that they wanted it more or we wanted it more. I think the difference was the fact that they had um, two additional players, similar to Subber. They had two additional players that were really players that that have impact. We didn't have anybody. It was pretty much the same players that won the first game and the second game, and that was pretty much reflective in terms of like what happened. But even the second game was tight as well. But I think the two extra players that they had kind of made a difference. Kind of made a difference in that play. And you're
So
right. 2-0 is the worst lead in hockey, and we did have that in the first game. And just somehow Haya kind of creeped up and tied the game, and I think that's exactly what happened.
So I actually saw your entire game, Habibi, for this. I saw the entire second game, and I think I saw bits of the first one as well. In that second game, I noticed that you guys were applying the pressure a lot. Like in the beginning, the speed The pressure was on, and honestly, I thought that Haya was not going to do much, and I felt like they were potentially defeated. But how wrong I was really, and it's the gritty plays. It just comes down to the gritty plays. It's the simple hockey in the playoffs. It's always a simple hockey, and that's the one thing Haya does is they do the simple plays and they're big bodies. So I saw there were a lot of guys in the corners, a lot of corner battling out there, and the goals were simple. There were a lot of them were rebounds, and it wasn't anything fancy, but not like Zuhair. But it was simple hockey, and that's how Haya wins. And they just found a way to grind it out, and it could have gone either way. It was super tough, but you know what?
Yeah, I agree with you, Buck. We did definitely apply the pressure right off the bat. That was pretty much our mindset. That was pretty much enforced by our by our leadership team in terms of like getting it out and just kind of doing it right away. Just kind of get any shot on that. Just kind of apply the pressure right from the onset, and we did do that. But again, you're coming off a second game. Having two fresh legs on the other team, which are again high
It makes
impact
a
players for that
difference.
team, it does kind of make a difference. And we were short benched. We had three key guys missing, including our first round pick. We had Zadie missing. We had a son missing. Those are key components to our team. And again, Buck, going back to what you're saying in terms of the positives, it didn't distract us in any way in terms of like using the pieces of what we've done, which is pretty much a tail of our season anyhow. We were pretty much running that throughout the whole season where we had guys, we didn't have guys, we were missing guys, and we kind of through Dawood and Mahib's leadership. I mean, they really found it, and even like the unsigned leaders in terms of like Mustafa Alam and those guys in the locker room, they kind of
Mustafa's not
brought
a
up.
silent leader. He's the
All right.
who's that
Before
silent?
we go into recapping Ascent season, we'll get to that in a later segment. I just want Maji to jump in and hear his thoughts. Was there any surprises in the quarterfinals, or did things go as you expected?
Maji's like, I don't know.
No, you know what? I was expecting this to be kind of along the lines of what the season has played out, and in that fashion, I think Isan played their game, and they had the extra players. Suber played as well as they could have, being men short, being having men sick, and unfortunately, that's kind of been the trajectory of their season. Now with the sorry, I apologize, the Iklas and the Suber game. Now the Isan and the Haya game, that I think again just came down to a nail biter of inches. It had really ended up being a game of inches. Could have gone either way. And when you have two goalies that are just on fire coming into the playoffs, you have Ali Khawaja, who's just tried, tested, and true, and then you have on the other side Mr. Khalid Mufti, who, like I said, and I've said it for I think 2 weeks now, and I'll say it again, is the Marty Brodeur. He just gets better as the season wears on, and he's just makes those the unorthodox saves that just gets the team riled up and back into it. So when you lose that hope that, oh my God, okay, maybe Isan's really pressuring us, Khalid Mufti comes out of nowhere and really revitalizes the team. So I am a little bit surprised to say that Haya did find their rhythm to be able to get both, really pull out both of those and be nitty gritty. But that also has been that Haya mindset is, we're not going to give any team anything easy. It's going to be, you want it, you want this inch, fight for it. So they're going to fight you every step of the way up and down the court. Now, I think personally, the Malik contingent makes a huge difference too, right? When you have a crowd just feeding you energy, and on the other side booing if you touch the ball, right? Like it's defeating it can be defeating for the visiting team or the opponent, but then it can be so much revitalizing for the for the same team. So I think Haya knows what they have to do, and their family, their friends come out in full force, and they just keep plugging away at it. So they're not an easy team to beat, and they're just not going to make it easy regardless.
So I'm gonna say something a little controversial before we jump into the thing. With Haya, I see them either as world beaters or I see them, defeated some days. So I need
Okay,
to know.
Buck, hold that thought. We'll get into that when we tee up the semifinals. Let's take a moment to kind of just reflect on the Suber team, their season, some of the standout players, and some of the things certain players can do to improve their games. Because we obviously want players to rejoin every season and to grow within Iceland to get better and better. So I will start it off with you, Buksh, because maybe I'll start and end it off with you because you're on the teams, and who better to
Sure.
ask but you?
So, Mobin question was basically like what lessons we can learn from
Yeah,
the season.
or if you want to give some feedback on certain players and what they could
Um,
do to take their game to the next level.
no, I think everyone's. I think the key thing for everyone is to make sure we all stay in shape, or make sure our cardio is there because as you can see, the game is getting faster, and we all are getting slower as we age. So there's a great contingent now. We have a lot of young guys coming in. So if you notice that the game is a lot faster than it used to be, so us as grizzled veterans, we need to make sure we can keep up and hey, we can't all be like Habibi and run like 5 miles a
Yeah, I
day,
was about to say that I think the game's the same. I think you just got slower, but
buddy. I got faster. I mean,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
we can't run 5 miles, okay? But yeah, I think that's the key thing. That's one key thing, and also second key thing. I'll say this to a lot of the younger guys that are coming into the league. So we talk about the older guys and they need to stay in shape. The younger guys also, I think, have to continue to play and grow their hockey IQ. Because there's one thing about kind of just running without purpose, and there's another thing to be kind of playing with purpose and positionally playing. So that's one thing you'll notice with a lot of like call it like guys with experience. So just if I'll give an example. I can't say nothing but good things about this guy, but Hamdani, if you just look at him, there's no wasted effort in what he does. He goes out there and plays very efficient.
Yeah, Buksh, the focus was on summer players, so maybe a good analogy would
Sorry.
be Khalil.
Okay, so let's give an example of no. So I'm just saying it goes both ways. I'll say one thing is I'll give a shout out to Ahmed Khalid. He came in on the trade and made an immediate impact on us. Immediate impact on the speed. His two-way defensive game got a lot better. And the one thing is, I'll say for someone like Ahmed Khalid, the thing to get better at is to kind of keep your head up and kind of look for the plays. You have all the tools. That's the part of the game that has to kind of evolve for you to become that next level player that he has the potential to be. And then there's guys like myself who, in order for us to keep up in the league, we got to make sure we're at par with our speed and making sure that our endurance is there. Because that's you need to make sure that we're running at 100%, and that goes for everyone. Line 1, 2, or 3, we have to make sure we're running at 100% at all times and get off if you can't.
Okay, no mention about Khalil. Does any Habib or Majid want to mention Khalil? I think he
The
was
Brotherhood Award winner. I'm not
Yeah.
going to say anything but the brother.
Yeah, I think Khalil was a bright spot for Summer this entire season. I think he's one of those grizzled veterans, as Umar wants to call him. Was scoring just consistently, and he was that bright spot early on when the times were dark for Summer, and really just leading by example, being that brotherhood. Just epitomizing that brotherhood mentality and trying to make sure the team stayed on track. I think, unfortunately, a big downfall was just attendance. Right? People have work, people have other lives, people have other things that are going on, and that makes it a challenge. People got sick as well, so I think it was an oddity for Summer this season. Just
Yeah, I was
the
actually
the
going
amount
to
of
bring that
games.
up, and I was going to bring that up. It would have been actually good to see this team like in full attendance to see the potential
Yeah.
of
We
this
had a
team.
lot of turnover too, so like half the team was different than it was. And you know what? Honestly, we made the playoffs. We had amazing goaltending from Black Bear, Ashfaq. He came in relief, and honestly, he's the big reason why we were in the playoffs for those games that he was in for us. He was phenomenal.
Personally, I felt if the second half of summer were together for a longer period of time, they
Oh,
would
we
have
would have been
had a
much better.
higher ceiling. Yeah.
Oh, and and again, it's gonna be. I also am gonna give a shout out to Omer. He doesn't get enough credit on the defensive side of the game that he plays. He draws minimum 2 penalties a game with his forecheck speed, and I'm gonna give a shout out to him because a lot of guys don't get their credit for what they do for the team. in on the scoreboard. So, big shout out to him for he does bring a big factor, and we were missing that in this playoff game. He would have been really helpful. We said it after the game as well.
All right, Habibi, same question to you, but reflect on your teammates on Red, on Asan, and how the season went.
So I think the best way to answer this question, Mobeen, is really looking at like sitting in the locker room, defeated, and we were kind of reflecting on the team ourselves, and some of the comments that came out in terms of from one of our leaders, which stands out in my mind. One of the guys actually said is nobody really knows our true story. Nobody knows the adversity that we kind of went through, but we found it from within to kind of dig deep and kind of find our true niche and kind of built from it. So we had, obviously it's kind of hard to kind of play without, your first round pick right off the bat. Our three GMs, one of them was actually a goalie. So it really had a huge impact in terms of the scoring. So that was kind of like our Achilles heel, where it was good that we had the defense, where we had a strong defensive core and a goalie contingent, but it showed in the whole season in terms of like not having that scoring opportunity. So I think the reflection, we kind of talked about it in the locker room afterwards. We didn't have kind of like that scoring prowess, but our team really had a tale of two dynamics. We had a lot of youth, and we had a lot of, what books would say, grizzly veterans, and the dynamic of that team in terms of like having even father and sons was actually quite unique. And for me as a bystander, my role on the team really kind of molded into letting the younger guys kind of do their thing, and me just kind of playing that facilitating role to let them grow. And I think that was another comment that was kind of mentioned in our locker room as well, where the team was really built on making them grow, and it was really felt even like in our WhatsApp group in terms of like, as the guys were kind of saying goodbyes, in terms of like especially the young defensemen looking up to the older defensemen, like in terms of like Moose, Zadie, and all that, saying, we learned a lot from your leadership, and thank you for guiding us to making our game player. And Moose actually said it well at the end too. He was kind of like, move on, take what you've learned and move it on to, to other leagues, whether you continue, whether it's Sun Up Cup, whether it's OBHA, whether it's whatever hockey it is. But
Hopefully,
what's
it's still Iceland.
and it obviously it will still be Iceland, but what's unique about Iceland is really that it's you really get to play with a dynamic group of players, and it's really that journey that you have with those 11, 13, 14 guys for the 10 games, and it was really felt in terms of like how really the youth, which is Mick, Ray, Save, Samaral, which is kind of like not a really younger guy, but even the new guys like Abdelaziz, like this was his first year playing hockey. He started off as a forward, but like mashallah, like our leaders actually found that his niche was actually not as a forward, and he blossomed as a defenseman. He blossomed as a defenseman in terms of like wondering, like actually realizing that his niece was actually playing D, and it was good to see that. But it was really better to see the younger guys step up, like Safe and Mick, and Ray. Again, they have that father son duo, so they kind of have to show their dads kind of like, we can do it and play probably better from that, learn from them. But I think the tail of our team really was, we start off with not knowing who we are. We didn't have our first round pick for quite a bit. We kind of dug from within. We didn't have a true team all along, and it was just kind of like attendance issues as well. It was there as well. But we did have veteran leadership. We had Hindi. We had myself. We had Dawood. We had Moose. We had Salman. We had a lot of those guys that kind of led.
And that
momentum
veteran
began
leadership
to-
will really pay dividends because you're a team that was challenging for the second spot. As you said, you faced a lot of adversity. Most teams that face that adversity would probably fold. So kudos to Isan. And and also, it's a shame that your first round pick didn't show up because you could really see that this would have been a team that would be in contention for the finals or even the championship if they had a first round pick that was reliable and that showed up for them. So
Well,
really,
aside
that's a testament to your core group's leadership.
Yeah, and you're right. But aside from that, if you look at our drafts in the past, it really is, the top two picks are really contingent on that scoring prowess. It's very rare that you'll find, a defenseman picked first. It really, and if it is a defenseman, it's a defenseman that can actually score. You know what I mean? So, it really, it really did, hurt us a bit, but we still managed to do without. You know what I mean? So, it was fun. It was a little bit like for myself, I played kind of that secondary role, um, but it was really like in terms of like advice. I think the advice really was well said in our group chat. Everyone was kind of the younger guys, it was nice to see the younger guys thanking the older guys, but it was really nice seeing the older guys taking ownership and full responsibility. That we tried our hardest and just take from this experience in terms of like moving on into other hockey experiences. Yes, especially with Iceland. But that's the beauty of Iceland, is that you take these experiences and you move on with a different set of guys, and hopefully, inshallah, like with all the experiences that you get in the seasons with Iceland, you can progress to other leagues, inshallah. So it was a well season. We had a lot of ups and downs, but I think it was a fun team to play on for sure.
Okay, let's move on to our next segment. I would like to touch upon the four semifinalists, but I'll do things a little bit differently. I want from each one of you their biggest strengths of why they'll win the championship and be in the finals, and why they will win the championship, and also what is their biggest weaknesses that might prevent them from going to the finals. So Maju, I'll start you off first. Why don't you start off with our team, because it's easier to criticize our team.
Yeah,
So what is
put
our
me on the
strength and what
spot.
is our biggest weakness that will prevent us from going to the finals?
I think the strength we have is goal scoring and just an all-rounded team, right? We do have, so Yakin, I'm speaking about for those who don't know, repping the Yakin jersey as well. So we have the best goal scorers in the league. We have an amazing defensive core that's helping myself, the goalie, out and being able to keep it out of the back of the net. We also boast the least goals against in the season. So we have that all-rounded team that can perform. So that's what's going to lead us to that championship. Now, the failure or the shortcoming of Yakin is and will be their secondary and tertiary scoring. If they cannot, I know it's a big word, eh? If they can't get their second line or their third line to help pocket a couple of goals here and there, then it's going to be a struggle. That was completely apparent when Yakin faced Rida, and Rida was able to keep Yakin's first line off of the score sheet, and it was a 1-0 game. Given that Rida also played phenomenal, like both teams had a phenomenal game that night, but Yakin needs to find other ways to score. Every team is now knows it's crunch time, and they're just going to stack their lines as much as they can. Everyone's going to go all out, hard nosed hockey to make sure that the Keen's line one doesn't get on the score sheet, doesn't see the back of it, and just doesn't see anything. So it's really going to be vital for Yakin to find that secondary scoring and find different ways to help out.
Okay, Baksh, you want to do the same thing for Haya, please?
What's their greatest strengths, or what will make them move on?
Yeah. And what's their biggest weakness?
I think their greatest strength is their tenacity and their experience. I think it's a team that's been there, done that, and I think they've rise to the biggest of occasions, as you saw from last week. And it's a team that you can't. They have everything. They have defense. They have scoring. They have toughness. They have They have some of the best scorers in the league too. I mean, but at any given time, Hamoudi, at any given time, Asabika, at any given time, Souf. It just comes down to, and I think I'll just segue this into like what I think the weakness is. I think I alluded to it earlier. Is, I mean, what version of Haya are we going to get? Some weeks I get some weeks we have the Haya that's world beaters and can't be touched and are very physical and score at a dime. And then some weeks we get the Haya that short manned, hurt, tired, lackadaisical, not playing at their full potential with all players.
Lackadaisical?
I didn't want to say it because I didn't want to be mean, but it just comes down to are they able to run out of all 8 cylinders, or will they have to kind of are they going to rely on their main guys too much? And and will they score enough? I think that's really going to come down to it. But you're going to have to score a lot because every one of these teams that you're facing they're all big, like they all can score. So I think that's going to be high. I think they're going to have to play more defensively and kind of shut down everyone, and they're going to have to play a low scoring game. And good luck trying to contain some of these
Okay.
teams.
All right, Habibi, would you be able to tee up a class, please?
Yeah, I think their biggest strength is chemistry. They have chemistry, they have leadership, they have veteran presence, they have experience. They have guys that have been there, done that at the highest level. They've got scoring prowess. They got pretty much everything that Maju mentioned with Joaquin, and I think with a little bit of more. I mean, Joaquin probably have a little bit more chemistry with their core contingent, but in terms of Ikhlas, they definitely have it all. They were built for this, literally. That is definitely their strength. They are built for playoff hockey. They are built for the big stage. They are built for just getting the job done. And I think their biggest weakness is themselves, to be honest with you. And that goes to again to Maju's point. It's really that secondary scoring and third scoring and maybe a little bit of the goaltending as well. So they got to pretty much protect Alvi, making sure that he's well protected. And I think that's kind of like their biggest weakness. But they have the pieces to do it. They have the pieces to get that, the third, fourth defenseman to kind of protect the back end. But I think this team is built for this stage. And I think that will be their biggest strength. And I think the strength in itself will carry them on to the next round.
Sounds good. Maju, want to finish us off with the case for and against Rida?
Sure. So Rida, as we know that not the best jersey in the league, whatever, but thankfully they don't play as well as or as bad as the Leafs do right now. So I think
Every podcast.
I can't stop, man. It's just I just can't stop. But that being said, Rida taking a week off. Hopefully they've kind of healed up on any injuries, anything that's gone through. I think their greatest success and their greatest strength for themselves right now is they have the youthfulness, right? They have their GMs that are clicking on all cylinders. They have the ability. Their all their GMs can play back and forward. They're just plug and play. Their entire team is built around just, hey, we need a man to play defense. We're going to pull this guy from forward to play D. Oh, we need him to play back to forward. We need an extra forward. We're going to put someone up. So they have that plug and play quality to them, and having Yusuf Kapoor in net really does allow you this season. And Yusuf has only been getting better as of late. And having that plug and play, that ability to have such a strong goalie on the back end allows you to take those extra chances and say, hey, you know what? We're going to go all out. We're going to do those extra rushes. So, and with Yusuf Ingar, even just being on fire as of the few last weeks, just batting stuff out of the air, has no chance, no reasonable reason to be scoring a goal like that, but he's making it happen. So I think just their speed, their tenacity, the youthfulness, everything is just pointing in the direction of Rida to be very successful. They just need to make sure that they show up, that they play well. Inshallah, that there's no weddings to attend. That's always a big molten piece. But they've been playing together for years. Their weakness.
No excuses, not even your own wedding.
Well, Abdullah showed that, right? The weakness is kind of goes along with their strength, right? So sometimes they're present, but they're not mentally present. They're physically present. So they're on their back heels. They're just kind of taking it easy. Might have been watching the Leaf game on their phones on the bench. Who knows? But that's not happening any longer. I can see both Mobeen and Habibi just shaking their heads. But you know what? It's a matter of just having your head in the game, playing in the there and now, and not worrying about, hey, what's the next period? What are we going to do next period of the next game even? And just making sure that, hey, you're playing this week, you're playing the 9 p.m. and the 11 p.m. game, you're there for those games. So, just being there, present now, and making sure that you do what's necessary for your team to move on.
I think another weakness too, if I might add, is the fact that they haven't played for a while too. That could be a weakness for them, because because it could work against them. Because I know you said earlier in terms of like healing from injuries and all that stuff, but it could also work against them the fact that they haven't
Mhm.
played together for 3 weeks.
Let's quickly wrap up and preview the Friday night's action. So speaking of not playing for a while, Yakin has pretty much solidified first place since week 6, where you have Haya who had to kind of fight their way into playoffs. So they're already in that playoff mode. Yakin kind of was on cruise control, but the series was split 1-1. Back in February, Yakin won 4-2. And the last week of the regular season on the 5th of May, it was a 6-1 thrashing in favor of Haya. So I don't know who wants to take a crack at the first series, kind of tee it up and
Habibi, go for it.
Well, I mean, speaking to Hamoudi, like obviously, like they have that in the back of their heads, and the fact that they've done it, they have it from within, to beat the juggernaut that Yakin is.
But
with
they
the
weren't. They
pieces.
were missing like their first line that game, weren't they? Yakin.
But even the game that they played against them before, it was still a high scoring game. I think,
Okay.
wasn't it? You know what I mean?
4-2.
Yeah, so they were still able to muster 2 goals from whatever. At the end of the day, I think Haya, um, it really will be dictated at the first game. To be honest with you, I honestly think that whatever happens at the first game will
One word.
dictate.
Who wins the first game?
Don't let me do this.
Maju,
I'm going to give Yakin the first game. Second game is going to be a different story.
who's winning the second game?
I really you're gonna put me on the spot. Yakin, man. I think yes, we're coming off of a bye or 2-week bye, whatever. But I think a lot of our guys have still been hitting the gym. We're still trying to make sure we play. I myself just on Sunday played 3 games so I'm trying to make sure I keep myself in shape and keep myself active. So I think our boys have done that too. We're very vocal in our team chat. So I think we're 3 weeks off, but we're ready to go.
Mobeen, Ikhlas versus Rida. One word. Who's going to win?
well, before we move on, the WhatsApp poll suggests that most favor Yakin to win the series. Moving on to the second series, we have Ikhlas versus Rida, and they only played once. It was a pretty drastic defeat. It was an 8-1 victory in favor of Ikhlas. I remember that game because Hadmani, the stars played half the game, so the game was pretty much over in the first period, in the first half. But having said that,
I think that was the
And
first time Rida got shellacked, right? I think that was the first shellacking they took in the season.
having
right?
said that, though, there's a different core. So they made trades. It's a new group of individuals. So it's not the same set of individuals that will be facing off.
On both sides, though.
On
On
both
both
sides,
ends.
correct?
Yep.
On both sides. So that loss that kind of helped propel Rida motivated them, and they actually ended up clinching second overall and getting that bye. So that could be a turning point for their season, and they'll have a chance at revenge on Friday. So interested in hearing your thoughts, Baksh, on
This
this
is
series.
this is both teams who like to. This is a puck possession team. Both teams are puck possession teams. Both teams, play well when their offense is distributing the ball and they rely on how movement of the ball and controlling the play. Both teams do. So it's going to be interesting to see. Can the defense of the class stop the offensive prowess of Rida? Because it's just going to come down to, I think it's going to come down to who controls the ball more, and who's going to be more efficient on their opportunities. And if we're talking that, then I give the edge to Ikhlas. If we talk about who can overpower, overthrow based on speed, skill, and combination of everything, then I give it to Rida. So it's just going to be, and honestly, like Imran Alvi stolen the show against us too. So don't count anything out. There's too many variables, and I would say it comes down to who controls the puck more, and I think the winner of that is going to win that first game, and I think it's going to be a mental game the second game.
I have a little bit of a different take. I think, I honestly, for both Rida and Niklas, I don't think it's going to come down to who has possession or anything. I think it's either going to be it's just going to be a high scoring game, or it's going to be a very low scoring game. It's going to be tit for tat, kind of stuck in the neutral zone for a lot of it, or it's just going to be both teams are just shooting lights out.
But both teams are really good at controlling the ball and bringing the ball up. So what's going to happen? Who's going to clog who? I think this is a tale of two teams who play similar, but two teams that have different ways of going about it.
And if we're going to talk that mental game that you were talking about earlier, I would probably lean towards a Ikhlas, in terms of like having the players on the big stage in terms of like the mental game. But Rida has the same pieces too. They've been on they've been with their backs against the wall in many occasions before, and we've seen it even in Iceland where they've risen to the challenge that comes to it.
They're both champions.
They're both champions, and I agree with Maju. Actually, I think this game will either be very high scoring or very low scoring. I anticipate the first game to be very low scoring, just to kind of get the feel of both teams. They're kind of going to get the feel of each other, just to kind of play that kind of reserved style. I don't think the first game will be high scoring. I think the first game will be low scoring, but I definitely think it will be a fun game to watch. Once the two, because they're going to see each other for pretty much the most of the night. So once they get comfortable in terms of like who they're facing and kind of see what they can get away with, if you might add, I think both teams with the leaderships that that are possessed on both teams, they're going to find the gap. They're going to find their weaknesses, and the second game is where it's going to go all lights out. That's the leadership that's going to come out on the second game, where all the the weaknesses that were exposed in the first game, it's going to get exposed in that second game. And I think the team with the more mindset of what the weakness is will win on this one for sure.
One word, go.
No, it's just interesting that the panelists you three have Rida favored, and as well as the voting population in WhatsApp. It just most of it's calling for an upset. It'll be an upset over a class 3 over Rida 2. So just interesting.
I'm going with the class.
But I don't think you can.
I'm actually going with a Ikhlas on this one.
They beat us, so they're gonna win. They have to win everything now.
But like I said, let's not count Rida out, because I honestly think the first game is going to be that testing of the water. And I think the second game is going to be the exploitation of what happens from the first game. And I think when you see Mandra and that contingent leadership in terms of like how much power they have on their team as a whole, and how they bring it into the second game, and how they influence their second line and third line, because I think their second line and third line has a little bit of edge over Ikhlas. I think if they can maintain that mindset and kind of bring it into the second game, I think that will make the difference.
All right. Well, on that note, we'll wrap this podcast up. But I will end off with saying there's a reason why we play the games. At the end of the day, there's a reason why we play the game. So it'll be fun to see how things unfold on Friday. And if you have some free time, please come out. It's good to have that atmosphere. We know there'll be a large contingent of Mullocks that show up, but it's good to have that brotherhood of even seeing eliminated players as well. Last week, I saw Yusuf Kapoor. I saw a whole bunch of guys that weren't playing.
We have a big group of guys who just like to come out and
it's just
hang out.
It's a good way to bond and have brotherhood. One last request, Arif, please come back, because podcasting is really hard. So wherever you are in Mexico, please come back soon. But big thanks to Habibi, Maj, and Bucks for taking their time out on this Wednesday.
Yeah, big thanks to you, Mobeen. Actually, you kind of did a good job.
Mobeen,
kind of hard.
Coming out soon, by the way.
Hey man, it's not easy, and like the fact that you were thrown into the hosting job, it's actually kind of hardest. I mean, the three of us were kind of like, we feed off your energy, and I think you did a good job on this one.
Yeah,
man, like Mobeen.
Before I end off, Habibi, do you want to mention about pick up on the finals night, just so we get players geared up?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really advertised it, but I mean, just similar to most seasons that we've done in the past. Usually, what we do, and it's because of our cost constraints with the refs and all that stuff in terms of like the minimum hours that we have for them, and obviously the hours that we have in the rink. But I think it goes without say that we'll stick with our normal tradition in terms of like having that 1 hour pickup game in between, and that usually is just again our obligations with costs. But also more importantly, it's really to get the guys out. So moving to your point in terms of like getting the guys out, pickup is really a good way to get kind of like a good run in between in the finals. But it also is that separation in terms of like between the first game and the second game, but having the guys out. So yes, Mobeen, we are going to have that pickup game in between, but it's more so for that. Just getting the guys out, and I think it provides a better atmosphere. So, yeah, well, more news to come out on that for sure, inshallah. But definitely something we'll be looking into on the night of the finals for sure.
Awesome. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for a graphic to come out soon. All right, with that, boys, assalamu alaikum. It's been a pleasure.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you so much.
Salam.